Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Derek and Logan.
Hello, and welcome to episode 155. We're one away from 3 straight years of this nonsense. And I am Logan. I am your host. And with me, as always, is...
You sound as excited as I do.
Oh, everything's a slow... Well, okay. So my wife is not the world's best cook. However, she makes an incredibly good lasagna. And the problem with that is I am incredibly lactose intolerant. And there is an insane amount of cheese that goes into this. Now, you would think that'd be a deal breaker. No, that is not a deal breaker. We consume. And every time it's like playing chicken with my lactose intolerance. And every time I lose. So I've been losing on the losing end of that tonight. And it's just dragging me down a bit. You know, it's and no, there was not a community sponge. No, I didn't use the shower curtain. You fucking Philistine. Instead, I use my as we'll find out, my elitist bidet and clean myself up nice and pretty for you. So here I am. And by you, I mean everybody. I'm here for everybody, but mostly Charmer. Derek, did you do anything in Flesh and Blood this week?
No, I didn't do anything in anything.
Well, you're literally just asked me about Thrive versus Flourish. So you did something.
I mean, just like deck building stuff. I mean, nothing that's like worth noting. Like I didn't make it to locals, and I didn't make it to locals for Star Wars, and I didn't make it to locals for Altered. I didn't
you
go
have locals
do...
for Altered?
Yeah. So like,
Jesus.
I didn't go do the things that like I would normally want to do. I mean, yeah, I've been messing around. I'm trying to figure out some version of Jarl that doesn't make me hate myself, because I think that the hero is like very well designed thematically, but in practice, I just haven't seemed to find a list that I like yet. So
seems like an uphill battle.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of Jarl lists. Most of them I've looked at and gone, I don't know. Like I wouldn't, this doesn't look great to me. Usually it feels like it has a hole in its matchup spread that wouldn't be able to be closed. Like that, this version would never beat a Runeblade, or never beat a Viscerai.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, let me just start. There's definitely going to be holes in the matchup spread. Just based on the little bit that I have done so far, Illusionists, or at least Enigma, is still going to be a nightmare. That's not unexpected. Illusionists have historically been a problem for Guardian. It's not that they can't beat him, it's just that even when you win, it feels like a loss because it's a giant slog. I also think, even though you're going to be running a decent number of blues and you obviously can have access to like AB and even Heart of Ice or whatever, I think Kano in particular is also problematic because you can't put your foot on the gas enough to pressure him. And if you're playing against a good one and they pitch stack, you also don't have enough defense at your disposal to stop them, even if you had everything. Like, unless you're on the triple Oasis hand or something, I think that a pitch stacking Kano can still nuke you, and even your best offensive turns, because you're a Guardian and you're relying on the disruption, are not going to be fast enough to race a Kano. So I think Kano will be a bad matchup. I think Illusionist would be a bad matchup. And then I feel like it... So interestingly enough, where I think Jarl could shine is New has been a problem for Guardians, mostly because a lot of the blue cards that New banishes are also then very offensive, right? Because you're either running blues with like high attacks to turn on Rouse, or you're running, just blues with high attacks for your clashes. If you're Victor, for example, there's always a bunch of reasons. Jarl, with the exception of like what is it, Autumn's Touch and Winter's Grasp is probably not running a ton of blues that actually attack. And that's not to say that there aren't some other issues. It's just that like your opponent playing a channel like Frigid against you and then losing it because they don't have any ice cards to pitch is like not super devastating. You know what I mean? So in the specializations New can't take advantage of. So I don't think that New will be nearly the polarizing matchup that she is for other Guardians. But I do think Jarl has the potential to struggle weirdly enough against Azalea as well.
Really?
Yeah. So you're going to have a bunch of D reacts and whatever, and you're going to have your own power. I think that the big difference though is that Azalea can go tall like until their deck runs out, and you have to time your going tall. So like, yeah, you're going to be able to hit her back from time to time, but I just don't think that it's going to be as impactful. And what's worse is like Azalea always has on hits. Like it's blood rots, it's inertia, it's you name it. I think a good Azalea player, like I'll put it this way, right? Like I'm not saying again that Jarl is going to lose to every Azalea. I'm just saying that I think a good Azalea player will likely be favored into this just because again, Jarl's in this weird spot where like he doesn't have the same offensive firepower as some of the other Guardians, but he also doesn't have the same defensive abilities as say like Oldhim had. So at least right now, in the deck building I've been doing, it's felt a little weird. I'm sure, like I said, I'm just missing a piece of the puzzle, but like early results right now are very much like this weird one turn on, one turn off sort of thing. But the problem is during those off turns, if you don't have a way to also stop whatever your opponent is throwing at you,
you don't have Winter's Wail is basically what you're saying.
It's a problem. And against some decks, it's fine. Because if it's like vanilla damage, no big deal. Like, yeah, you leak a little, but that's not the end of the world. It's mostly in my opinion anyway, heroes that will have offense with relevant on hits that if you do struggle against any of the offensive heroes, I would expect it to be them. And so like, that's why Azalea comes to mind, right? Because like, yeah, if they send an 11 dominate, you know, you've got a D react and a card from hand and some equipment, you might be able to block it all once or twice. And if you can't block it all, the problem is again, it's not crush effects with Azalea like it's going to be with the Jarl stuff. So, you know, if they touch you for one, that's still the blood rot or the inertia that sets off your setup hand you were trying to do or whatever. So I'll put it like the easiest way I can say it is like, I wouldn't want to play against a Brody Spurlock on Azalea with Jarl and feel confident, right? Because a good Azalea player is going, I think, to come out ahead. I do think Jarl has a lot of other good matchups though. Zen, Aurora, obviously, you know, all your traditional go wide things. I think
Channel Lake Frigid matchups.
Yep. I think he's going to be fine there. And that's probably good enough for him to find a home in the meta. I just wished I felt better about some of the other stuff.
Yeah, the Azalea matchup kind of surprises me just because you have the ability, they don't block for shit. So you kind of have the ability just to eat their equipment and make it so they don't have their Skullbone anymore or don't have access to their half glove, and then it turns on your Warmongers, stuff like that.
I don't disagree with you. I think that for that particular matchup, it's going to be like a bit more variance oriented. And that's another thing. I guess I should put it this way as well. We're so used to Flesh and Blood being a game where players can overcome variance, but like in that particular matchup, if you don't find the stuff that destroys the equipment, right? Like if you don't set up the mangles or the exposes or whatever it is that you end up running early enough to get rid of them, they don't really care about anything else, right? Like,
no, they don't.
They're just fine taking whatever you're throwing at them. And so part two of that as well is like, honestly, outside of things, you've basically got three like real attacks. That's not to say you don't have more, but the stuff that people are going to care about, because the specializations for, let's say, Bravo and Victor are off the table, and so on and so forth. It's like Mangle, Oak and Old, Spinal Crush, and then, you know, you might have one or two other attacks that are going to be whatever flavor you want to throw in. But after that, it's it's kind of a lot of supporting
Mopey.
pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the deck building part, it's like, okay, well, how do I make them like matter enough in those matchups? And the biggest difference is like you have to actually draw those cards. And with Azalea, a lot of times any arrow will do, because the things that provide the on hits are plentiful and not always attached to the arrow. So that's why I was saying, like, I don't think that it's going to be like this wildly polarized matchup, but I would say a good Azalea player is probably going to be favored at the end of the day, like 55-45, something like that.
Okay. That makes sense.
So anyway, I haven't done anything official Flesh and Blood. It's been mostly theory crafting because I have just not been like in a good spot. So that's
I get it. Yeah, I actually went into my armory. I actually ran it because I was asked by the person that took it over from me. It's like, you needed a night, and it's like, yeah, it's fine, but I see that it's blitz, and I don't wanna. So I'm gonna put a poll out there and see if anybody wants to do draft. And it turns out everybody wanted to do draft, and so we drafted instead. And that allowed us to break out the Dagon White Uwu sleeves. And so if you've seen those on Blue Sky, they are priceless and perfect in every way. And if you haven't seen the Kawaii Dagon White Uwu sleeves, you should create a Blue Sky account and follow Flesh and Pod, and they are there. So they are gorgeous. I went 2-1 on Acilio when there were 3 Acilio at the table, which big yikes. That is too many people trying to force Acilio. I opened a Comet Storm and was like, nobody goes Acilio, right? It's like the one most people dodge. So I open a Comet Storm, I take the Comet Storm. The only Acilio card, quote unquote, that I'm passing is a Sigil of Lightning, and I'm used to seeing those wheel, right? Well, the person to my left decided that, a Sigil of Lightning, clearly Acilio is open. And it's like, no, it wasn't, but okay. And it's had 3 Acilio decks and obviously got cleaned up by the Earth Heroes pretty bad. But I also got like my spoils from Japan. My friend Nathan Benny, who was helping me attain the things that I wanted from Osaka, he came through, and I have my heroes, my Ira. It's very pretty.
It is very pretty.
And then got the rest of them too. So there's Viscerai, which is probably the second prettiest. I don't know. It's pretty nice.
That's a weird way to pronounce new.
New is gorgeous. I'm not gonna lie. The new is very, very, very pretty. Like
a stained glass peacock.
Kinda, yeah. And then there's Dory. I mean, it's just Dory, right? But it's nice. I mean, I don't hate him. And he also grabbed me the Anime Ira sleeves and the Anime Ira playmat. And then I also had him pick me up one of these things. So I'm gonna open this. Not now. I'm gonna do it later. Probably like before listener questions. That sounds fine. I've already been edging myself with it for several days now. I can wait another 45 minutes or whatever it'll be. But that's pretty much all I did outside of mess around with Starvo lists. Turns out electromagnetic somersault in Starvo is a hell of a drug, and I have continued to do that while working on Briar as well. Otherwise, and then it's been a lot of non-flesh and blood stuff. A lot of going to football games, watching football games, consuming far too much alcohol. My normal stuff, in all honesty.
Yeah. Existing.
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of just how I make sure I stay breathing. Which is ironic, really. But there were some flesh and blood events, though. They did happen. The first one, we'll talk about Battle Hardened Columbus first, which was a Living Legend Battle Hardened. It was won by Dan Grossclose on Zen. And top 8 was, the spread was not the 8 hero spread that we like, but we'll take a solid 5. So 2 Viscerai, 2 Chain, 2 Zen, 1 Starvo, and 1 Aurora. That feels pretty close to representative. I think Prism Kano are your other two. I would expect them to be here decks.
Yeah.
But so this feels about right. The Starvo was Roger Bodie. One of the Viserais was Michael Hamilton. It was pretty. What's the word I want here? It was a pretty stacked top 8. So yeah, Dan Gross close, obviously the winner. Christopher Ayali was in the top 8 on a Viserai. Wyatt Garing was the other Zen. We already talked to Michael Hamilton. Zach Phillips was the Aurora. Kevin Breyer was the other was one of the chains. Lucas Barding was the other chain, and then Roger on Starvo. So that's a pretty loaded top 8. Not gonna lie. So kind of hats off to that group for going and sticking their head into the kind of new-ish metagame for Living Legend with being able to play the 3 copies of Starstruck now.
Yeah. I would say like unsettled might be the way.
It's definitely unsettled. That's 100% true. Chicago is getting more and more interesting by the day almost, because if you go on to Talishar and just look for Living Legend games, you'll find some wild shit that people are doing. Lots of people trying to make like OTK Asilios work. A lot of people still trying to run Verdance combo. A lot of people are playing Ira in Living Legend, which I guess, I mean, that seems like you're going to lose to all the things that are powerfully consistent. But we're also starting to see things like the thing that stops arcane damage unless you're dealt damage. That deals arcane damage only goes away if you've been dealt damage. Start to pop up, because that was a chain breaker for Ira, or it's an Ira breaker for chain. And then seeing a lot more AB come across means that, that possibly is why Kano isn't around, plus the restrictions that we saw there. No, I didn't see anything that was like a dedicated CYB deck or anything like that. Haven't seen anything like that in Living Legend, which is interesting. I figured that might still happen. But yeah, and I think a lot of people are still playing Azalea and Lexi too. And Briar for that matter. So it's a widespread right now. So unsettled probably, yeah, I think that makes the most sense. Unsettled is a good way to put it.
I was mostly just thinking because it's not new. It's just that with the recent changes, like there's a shakeup, but I'm also not seeing anything, at least that it, is performing well, that surprises me either. Right. So like, I don't know that I would call it new as much as it is just, unsettled, but.
Yeah. And so, I mean, Runeblade is still good. Art of War was a mistake, but nothing's been a bigger mistake than Starvo. That tells the story of the top 8. We did it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. I am interested now. I'm still trying to determine what I want to play in Chicago. If I want to try to do History of Draft, or if I want to. God, is that still open? Let's go find out. Really.
Last time I looked, it was, but.
If I want to do History of Draft, or I want to do actually play in the Calling, because both are interesting to me. Registration, because History of Draft is still there. It looks like. Yep, can still do it. It's such a cool idea, and I wish it was like done at a different event. I don't know. Like it kind of sucks, because I'm like, I want to do, but I mean, then I also just wouldn't be sad playing side events. So there's that too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's History of Draft, there's Go Again, there's Fabled. So kind of the same original spread.
You're gonna drive there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just like me. Because like I did have the other thought too. I was like, man, if it was any other event where like I had to fly, I might be less likely to do History of Draft because
I can haul all the shit.
Right, I'd be bringing like all the cards back or whatever. But now I'm like, yeah, I can still like bring most of it back.
Right, and that's exactly where I was at. It was just like, all right, there's nothing stopping me. Let's put it that way, from doing History of Draft, except for I kind of want to play in the Calling too. And it's probably just going to come down to me flipping a coin, or I could just let your wife choose for me because then it's Sophie's choice. Fuck you. Still.
I love that. That's
I'm still mad
you a
about
week
it.
later.
I'm still mad about it. Like
You're just mad because it was so good.
I know, and yes, you are correct. I am mad because it was good. That is the reason I'm upset about it. But like I walked right into it.
Mm-hmm.
I should have been aware, and I was not. And I caused my psyche irreparable harm because of it. I am no longer going to be the same trusting and welcoming and warm individual that I've been in the past because of this experience.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, well, fair enough. We also had a Calling in Florence. Won by Jacob Clements. Congratulations there. It was limited. It was Rosetta limited. So deck lists are pretty unimportant. He did win on Verdance, though, I think it looked like. And that was a kind of one of those interesting events, too, because Europe, to me, like the Europe events in general, to me, are super interesting. So your top 8 here, you have Jacob Clements, the winner, Paul Van Giesel, Jacob Trossing, Brody Spurlock, weird, Francesco Giorgio, Jason Rolfe, Jack Raven, and Tomas Zalesko. The interesting thing to me is also that you then had like a stack of like the Euro Magic players like right there on the bubble, which is always fascinating too, because on the US side, we don't have as many of those turning to this game as there are in Europe. I think part of that is the lack of Wizard sponsored events in Europe and not North America. And that's just pulling some of those people in. And welcome. We're happy to have you. We have Punch and Pie. But so it was very interesting to see like Andrea Mengucci and Florian, Laughlin and these guys there, Gregerson, our world champion. These are all Magic guys that are now playing the top tables of Flesh and Blood because it's like, I need to get my fix somewhere. And this game travels the world. Okay.
And it's fun.
And it's really good. As soon as you play it, it's really good. I did see, I believe it was Mengu brought up that what the ELO system does, and which is it can disincentivize players to play, but since there's no local ELO, it kind of goes back and forth a little bit on that one. But you get people that are just like, play the Calling, get to 2 losses, and just not play day 2 because you're dead for top 8 or whatever. If you got your 2 losses too early because you're protecting your ELO, and then you just don't even play the Battle Hardened, right? You do see that sometimes now. There's also the like people who, you can't really camp ELO because you do have to play X number of rated events within the 90-day window to qualify on ELO. Otherwise you don't effectively. But the same token, like he's kind of advocating for pro points to be involved, which is the system that Magic starting in about 2014, 2015 started using. And it actually worked pretty well. And so people typically played more. But we also have that thing where they left a kind of a hole when they switched nationals qualifications so that XP wasn't used anymore. And it devalued armories and people kind of stopped showing up. But they've actually done a really pretty good job of making armory promos relevant again.
Yeah.
So people are showing up and are interested. It's just been it's been tough sledding to a degree up until the last couple of sets worth. We also had a Battle Harden in Florence that was Blitz.
Yes, we did. That was the one that I was most excited about.
Yeah, so won by Erica Forsloff on Blaze, one of 3 Blazes in the top 8, because Blaze is good. Just blasting, in case you didn't know. There was also 1 Data Doll, 1 Victor, 2 KO not Berserker Runt, and 1 Aurora. Is that healthy? Or is that just Blitz, where arcane damage and Blitz?
So this is interesting because I don't know how much of that is metagame. I don't know how much of that is just arcane damage and Blitz. I mean, obviously it's been emphasized since Kano first arrived, and then after Kano's departure, people have been finding other ways to do it, whether it was Blaze, whether it was Emperor. Like we know that that's an emphasis, and again, it's one of those, like, is it an emphasis because people are just unwilling to dedicate slots to it, right? Are they unwilling to deck build for it, or is it just the nature of the format having less health, where, you know, even if they do include, you know, let's say they put a couple of Oasis Respites in their, you know, deck list, right? Because we know that we have a smaller inventory, if you will, for Blitz. So you can't really do like big swap outs, but like, let's say you have like a couple of Oases and you bring them in, but if you don't draw them and you take like back-to-back turns of 6 Arcane or something, then you're kind of on the ropes. So
and looking at the Victor list, there are 3 pieces of Null Rune and an Oasis. So, you know, pretty good there. The KO lists look like they are mostly fuck it, we ball. You have AB2 on Skullhorn, and then Null Rune Boots. No respites, and you don't have a ton of blues. So
that's the other part of the problem, right? Is that because you have, like, you still have an inventory with Blitz, but you don't have as much room.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, I can bring in, you know, Null Rune and, you know, 9 more blues or something. It's like I can bring it in and then hope that I have enough to pay for it, or else it doesn't matter anyway.
Right. And Data Doll has 3 intellect. Like,
yeah.
Oof. So really the only one, the Aurora could do some things. They have Spellfray, Tiara, Shock Charmers, Lightning Greaves, Carapace. But again, 4 total blues. So some of it's a what you gonna do type of thing. Just pass every turn. But yeah, it's one of those things where you either dedicate slots to it and you're probably weaker to other things, or you don't and maybe still lose, or you don't and you hope that either A, you dodge them, or B, you race them. I don't think dodging them is really a possibility anymore. Pretty sure you have to have a plan.
Yeah. No, I think the meta's been like that for a while. Even before Blaze, I would have argued, like, you should have a plan for Emperor too, you know, like.
Mm-hmm. Emperor is unique just because of the multi-axis play style of Emperor, but they're all reds.
Yeah, well, that, and again, we're kind of, I think, both attacking this from the same point of view, even if we're not saying it out loud explicitly. But like, the idea is, if your deck is built for a normal physical oriented matchup, then you need to have a plan for the Arcane, with the idea being that, like, if you run into Emperor, the normal stuff in your deck should be part of your plan for the physical side, so you only need to have the plan for the arcane side, right? So
yeah,
when we say have a plan, that's what we mean. We're just shorthanding it because Logan and I touched our frontal lobes together once, and now we can psychically communicate.
Pretty close. Yeah, and yeah, it's like mental docking, where we just kind of, and then we've never plopped. We've just stayed docked.
Right.
Yep, that's exactly correct. The Jarl deck is now fully spoiled. It's all out there if you want to take a look. It is mostly your typical array of draft commons after the things we've seen already. The last Majestic is Expose the Elements. We really should have just seen that coming. That just makes sense. We even talked about Expose the Elements being a card that Jarl would want 1,000 times, and then we just could not, for the fucking life of us, put two and two together. But yes.
Well, because we were thinking of threes, like, yes, I think Jarl wants Expose, but I think that I would be hard pressed to see most of the lists running three, because you're already going to be on Mangle, the new Frozen to Death, right? So like, how many more do you need? And that one's also one that doesn't block, and it's got like a dual fusion piece to it. So I think running at least one is probably still important, because there are certain pieces of equipment that you're like going to want a window of opportunity. So like, if you're a newer player and you didn't play during the Starvo meta, for example, like the go-to with Expose during that period was you wait till they commit, all of their cards and their pitch and resources, etc., to an attack. And then like, you're going to take that damage on the chin, but then because they didn't have no way to pay for it, you would do the fusing of Expose the Elements, and you had a lot of options, but typically you were blowing up Crown of Seeds. If the matchup was running like Rampart, because some of them were doing that, like if you could get blow up one piece of equipment and then also put the -1 on the Rampart, effectively making that useless, like that was also a pretty pivotal blow. So I think having those opportunities are still important. I just wasn't thinking of it as a 3 of, right? Like,
no,
feels a bit much, but
yeah. But the Jarl definitely wants the exposed armor zones, so maybe again, it's an armory deck, right? Yeah. And they're trying to teach one lane of play with Jarl, which is kill inventory, blow up armor, make frostbites in armor. That's the deck. And okay, I get it. But at the same time, if you were looking at this, your upgrade path for this deck would be, okay, we're subtracting some number of copies of Expose the Elements, or we're shifting them, we're shifting one out, moving two into the inventory, and then bringing, other cards in.
I mean, I don't hate it as... I should put it this way, like, I don't hate it as the inclusion in the armory deck. It's just that's not where our brain was naturally going. Like, I do understand its purpose. It's also nice just to give a play set of them, to a new player. You're right, it does create an easy path for like potential upgrades and whatever. It just was not where my brain was. That's all.
Yeah, it's like this Snow undercard that can go away and just be Oakenold. Buckling Blow can just go away and be Spinal. This is possibly the easiest upgrade, like, oriented deck of the armory decks I've seen so far. You have to do a lot of work to the Azalea deck, and you have to do quite a bit of work to the Dash deck. And I think the one that has the least of work to do in it is probably the Bolton deck, but this one is probably the easiest I've seen so far. It's just an easy, okay, well, you only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 red attacks. That needs to change. And then you look at your blues, and it's like, well, Amulet of Ice, that doesn't block. That's gone. And, you kind of just keep going from there.
Yeah. I mean, Amulet of Ice like I could see a world where with a different card pool, it would still get played in Jarl. It does still pitch for a blue. It's an ice card with Go again.
Mm-hmm.
So like playing it when you've got one exposed zone also gives them the frostbite from the Jarl hero ability. I think that the biggest like problem is that there's not, in my opinion anyway, I don't think there's going to end up being a lot of ice fusion cards. Now there might be builds that do go a little heavier on the ice fusion, but in order to take advantage of the actual trigger part of Amulet of Ice, you need to do some work, right? Like you probably, if you're doing that, you're probably running a version of the deck that's likely also running like Insidious Chill. What is it? Snow Under. Yeah. For more ice fusion stuff, like things in that vein. And I'm not saying that like a version of that couldn't work. It absolutely might. I just don't envision that's the way that it's going to go because you have so many other things you also want to put in it, but maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's they did put a lot of the ice fusion stuff in this because they did put Glacial Footsteps, Snow Under, Emerging Avalanche. We already talked about Expose, and then they have Strength of Sequoia for Earth Fusion. But at the same time, it's like, okay. Amulet of Ice is great against Dromai. Mm-hmm. Because then you can play it and you can get hit by Kyloria.
Listen, if you're playing against a Dromai, you're already in a good spot because they're cheating. So,
or you're playing Living Legend.
And then you're just dead.
There's the one. There we go. We figured it out. I'm so proud of us. Yeah, you're just.
And it's interesting because as we talk about this is like the same issue that I keep saying I'm running into with the deck building, right? Is I think that there's a lot of different ways to approach it. You could do an ice heavy one with some fusions, and then maybe I don't think you'd want 3, but like maybe you do want to include maybe an amulet or 2, or maybe you want to run Insidious Chill. And if you do that, then you could still run the boots from the Armory deck because it's just more auras that you can get the value from, right? Like I don't hate all of those things. I just think to myself, like, yes, I could do all of that, but there's also cards like Tear Asunder and Buckle and Spinal that I want. And if I'm being entirely honest, there's other stuff that I want to experiment with. I don't know if they'll end up staying. Oh, I think Plow Under. Well, I think at a minimum, Plow Under's in just because it blocks for 3 and
isn't a red.
Yeah, and it isn't a red, right? Like that's a lot.
It matters a ton.
But no, like the card that I keep actually like thinking about wanting to experiment with, if I do want to go with a more defensive version, right, more on the Oldhim side, I think something like Nerves of Steel could actually be really good.
That's funny because we do have one of our locals that was experimenting and he resolved the Nerves of Steel against an Ira player. Yep. That game ended several hours later, but that game ended.
Yeah.
When the Ira just couldn't do anything.
Yeah. Nerves of Steel, if you're listening and you're not a Guardian aficionado like I am, when you play it, so straight up, it doesn't have Go Again, but it's a blue pitch, blocks for 3, costs 3, so pretty standard Guardian stuff. It's an aura. When you play it, right out of the gate, you get to remove a -1 defense counter from your chest. So if you're using the chest from the Armory deck that has Temper on it, that gives you just like 1 more activation. So even though it's -1 counter, it's like actually quite a bit of additional value because it's that much longer you keep your chest around. And that's just from when you play it. Then it goes further and it says that your Battle Worn and your Temper equipment, they do not like trigger you get a -1 effect when they are blocking something that has 2 power or less. And that's anything. So it's like not just attack actions, but weapons. And that's usually like the big thing. So the idea is you play it to make your chest go back to full value. But then also, by the way, if you're just running the Armory deck, again, just thinking about straight upgrades, if you're running the chest and you're running the gloves, you can block, 2 attacks with those and you just do it forever. It's almost like a long-term value version of that all you got in a way.
Yep.
Now the one downside is Nerves of Steel does eventually go away, but the beauty is
you have to take damage.
You have to take damage. So again, if you're playing, that's why I said it in a more like defensive old Himmy version, if you're prioritizing, just fatiguing and not taking damage, it makes sense to play around with it because it sticks around forever. It's not one of those things that lasts a turn, and it's not like Channel Lake Frigid where you have to keep pitching to it. It's literally there until they get through like your wall. Now the best part is because if you want, you could run 3 of them. Like when they finally do all that work to get rid of it, you could just, okay, well now I'm gonna like plop down, I'll block with my equipment again, get a counter on my chest piece, and then plop down another one and rinse and repeat. And if you're doing this a bunch of times and you're running stuff like Channel Lake Frigid and all of these other things, you can make a go wide deck like absolutely hate you. So I do want to experiment with it, but again, the more I talk about the regular Guardian stuff that I think could be really cool in Jarl, that reduces your pool of potential fuse stuff, right? So then you have to start prioritizing. So it's just a nightmare puzzle. I'm still just trying to work it out, but
I mean, I think it's interesting. And when it was being described to me, I was just like, yeah, that's a way to put an Ira player in jail is, okay, block your first Kodachi with a piece of equipment, block your second Kodachi with a piece of equipment, block your third thing with 2 cards from hand. Okay, swing my weapon. All right, next turn. Okay, cool. Block your first Kodachi, block your second Kodachi, 2 card block from hand. We done? Cool. Send my weapon. And it's just like,
yep.
This is pretty fucking oppressive.
It's also funny because the more that I look at deck building and it's right on my mind because again, I keep going to Reddit so that you don't have to. And one of the recurring things that always pops up is, how much or how necessary cards like Command and Conquer and Light and Strike and whatever are. And the more I mess around with it, the more I'm like not convinced Command and Conquer belongs in Jarl.
I don't think that it does.
You don't have, because I don't think you want to run Pummel in this list personally.
No,
because it's already you're fighting with the non-elemental stuff to begin with, and so you're just, in my opinion, at that point committing too many either generic or just regular Guardian cards. But also, again, the fact that you can't use it on your weapon is a pretty big deal. Not having access to Tunic for the old blue plus Tunic equals CNC and Pummel is a pretty big deal. And so if you're not running Pummel, you really don't have a lot of ways to get your Command and Conquer past a break point. And at that point, it's like, well, if I'm just running it because it like swings for 6 and blocks 3, why am I not just running Yellow Autumn's Touch? You know what I mean?
Right.
Or,
well, I mean, there's non-hit involved, but yeah.
Well, sure, but
the
I'm just saying,
defense
like,
reaction part is
right.
relevant. And...
Well, I mean, it is and it isn't. Most of the decks that are also running defense reactions against you are going to have ways to block it even without it. It's not like the end of the world. I think that the upside of that card versus what it does to your deck building puzzle are not necessarily there. And I just personally like that. Like if there are lists that end up within it, I'm not going to judge anybody. And I'm not even saying that I'm right yet. I'm just saying that this is definitely a deck where the argument could be made. And I like that we keep seeing those because it just pushes back against that narrative, right? Because Jarl's not going to likely want to run Enlightened Strike, at least in this meta.
No.
And argument made against CNC. And so really of the, quote unquote, big 3 generics, the only thing that you should expect to see is Sink Below, which makes sense. But I like that, right? So
yeah, no, it does. It is more flavorful's the wrong word, more on brand, maybe. And that's the part of it that is enticing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Moving on, we have our December Armory kit. Now, if you're new to Flesh and Blood and you haven't been around for a December Armory kit yet, these are usually a ton of fun because they'll include some random stuff that's just funny. Like last year was Squizzy and Floof. I think the year before that was Shitty Christmas Present. There's literally a card called Shitty Christmas Present.
Well, it's Xmas Present, mostly because of the length of the title. It would have been hard. Yeah.
And then they've also done cold foil holiday cracked baubles. I have tons of them. And this year they're doing a cracker bauble. Now, this is hilarious, and I love it. It's a cracked bauble, so it's a pitch. It's a zero pitch, or it's a yellow pitch, zero cost, generic resource with no block value. That when you pitch this, you and target opponent randomly choose opposite ends of this and pull them until this breaks in half. Then each hero creates a token on the backside of their half, and this ceases to exist. Now, there are 20 different backs to these tokens, which is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Because your opponent might get a soul shackle and you get a Zen state. That's kind of fun. You might get a blood rot token and your opponent gets a diamond token, which is just draw a card with go again. I think that this is one of the funnier ones that they've done. I think these are great.
I just my heart goes out to the master set folks.
Oh fuck yeah! I'm glad that I don't do that shit, because having to get all of these so that you have every variation of it,
at least 2 of each, because you're going to need a ripped in half version too.
Probably. And but no, these are like casual only. You can't play these in competitive events, but and
so
the way
far
yet, and the way that you get these is each customer purchases $20 or more for any store that received these gets one. So you drop $20, you go buy an armory deck, you go buy some packs or whatever, and you get a cracker bauble. They'll receive, each store that receives them should get 40 of them. So again, nice little thing that they do. I really do enjoy it. The armory kit's a bit of a troll. First off, the rainbow foil extended art is count your blessings.
Mm-hmm. I saw that.
Yep. 1. Okay. 2. One of those is unplayable in CC at least. The 4X cold foil is the actual holiday promo this year, which is Spirit of Christmas. A lot of people are just wishing that this card was legal, and it's like, no, you don't want that. Because
or do you?
It's a blue 0 cost with go again generic action that each player chooses a different player, and that player creates an agility, a might, a vigor, and a gold. So Victor would just play this all the time because he gets all the tokens and it replaces itself.
Would Kasai?
Yeah, 100%. This would be a 3 of, because it's a non-attack with go again that sets up your next turn, plus gives you a gold for raise or to just blow so that your sword attacks are free. Like, there's absolutely nothing about this there's no reason why you wouldn't. Like, the card is way too good. It is on the special use list though, so you cannot play it. Not in CC at least. As of I'm just waiting for the day they kind of make it is a blue block 3, by the way, if anybody's wondering what the block value was. I'm waiting for the day where they kind of give us more of I don't want not necessarily competitive format that involves these types of cards, because they do some things like with UPF, but there's a ban list for UPF. But there are so many cool special use promo cards. Now they banned my favorite one. Like, you can't play my favorite one in UPF. You can only play it in super tabletop casual. Do you remember which one it is?
Is it the Go Bananas?
It is Go Bananas.
Yeah.
Because that one, you just name an attack action and you start ripping packs until you find one.
Yeah, you go bananas.
You go bananas, baby.
And it's going to be really rough when you name Fable Command and Conquer.
Yeah, you name Command and Conquer, and somebody's like, all right, get to work, and you start ripping boxes of Dynasty, and they're like,
oh,
what are you doing? It's like, we're gonna be a while. And that would be funny, actually.
Because you have to commit to the bit.
You always have to commit to the bit. If you don't commit to the bit, what the fuck are you doing with yourself?
Right?
No, the best is when you name it and you pack one, open it.
Dude, that would be...
That's an Andy thing. Money fake.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, I guess. But yeah, if you just like the sick rip pack one, hit it out of the park, here you go. That would be perfect. Now the one of cold foil in the armory kit is obviously regrowth shock, because why wouldn't it be?
Why wouldn't it be?
I was just going to be content with having rainbow foils. It's going to be fine.
It's going to be fine.
And now I need to get cold foils.
It's going to be
dumb.
fine.
I mean, Briar at least isn't CC legal, so maybe people won't care. Maybe. How much are Marvel Rosetta Thorns again? You know what? We haven't done a live check on anything today. How much are Marvel Rosetta Thorns right now? Going to tcgplayer.com because MinMax doesn't pay us. And
well, also they wouldn't have it listed, right?
Why wouldn't they?
Do they have one in stock?
If they had one in stock, they would.
Right. I'm just saying, like, they don't normally. I mean, right now there's only one on the market, and that's...
Yeah, I'm looking at real sell prices.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Looks like 500 is where they started to come back up to again. They were down around the 350 range.
I'm showing right now most recent sale was 6.
Yeah. Yep. Which... Okay. I don't... Yeah, we'll check MinMax and see if they have... a Marvel Rosetta Thorn in stock.
My thing was, the only reason I mentioned it is because if I remember correctly, they don't update their prices till they relist again. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where they had to have had one in stock to have like that initial pricing. They
have one in stock for 600.
Oh, they have one. Oh, yes, for 600. Aha. Mm-hmm.
Yup. They sure do. No, I'm not buying it.
So far.
Nope.
Well, now that you got me on their site, I guess I should also check some of my stuff.
I mean, like what? What do you possibly need?
I don't actually own a Coronet Peak.
Oh! Okay. That's getting got a little bit. That can't be expensive. Like maybe $30 at most.
Well, I mean, I'm going to get a cold foil one. 57. That's not bad.
Sure. Yeah. God, that's out of Uprising. How do you not have one?
Dude, I got so unlucky with my case of Uprising. I only got one legendary and then one. So like I say unlucky. I got a Marvel Tomultai and I got a cold foil Furnace, and that's it. That's all the legendaries I have from that set. I never opened a Shuko. I never opened a Peak. I never opened anything other than those two things. And I drafted it a bunch too.
Well, yeah.
Like that set hated me for hits.
Fair. Huh. I get, yeah, I mean, I've always, yeah, I guess it's been really hit or miss with sets for me about what's been good and what hasn't.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. I think that I didn't open a single Marvel out of Uprising until I was in the top 8 draft of an RTN or something. Like it was something along those lines. But I don't know. I knew that. What set was it? It was, I think it was Mistveil. I could just grab a box of Mistveil and hit my EV almost immediately, which has been a big conversation recently, where the and I've seen it on a lot of different channels in YouTube now. People are really like coming in and noticing how well the more recent Flesh and Blood sets are holding value. Like box prices have not cratered. like they normally do.
And
And
we've been getting, in my opinion, obviously we don't know the numbers as well, but like my opinion, I think is just because we're getting such a big influx of the new players, because I go to Reddit so you don't have to. And like I said, the last show, the number of posts I see about like, I'm getting into the game, where do I start? I'm getting into the game, how do I find like local stores that play? It's just like one after the other. And I love that. It's so, to me, encouraging to see that. And yeah. I would not be surprised if that's translating to box prices not, bottoming out the way they used to, because finally people are coming around.
Right. And I think that, again, when you have like box prices sort of have that, they're normally super high, then they crater, and then they slowly come back up to like a reasonable mark. But the big thing has been with box prices now is that the legend, like with all the Majestics holding value, like Felling of the Crown, Plow Under, that shit's still expensive. They didn't come down at all. And the new player part is actually really fascinating because they're, again, we're not a min-max podcast, for fuck's sake. Peter won't sponsor us. But he did a video on YouTube that's actually a very good watch and well worth watching.
Oh yeah, they posted it on Blue Sky, right?
Yep. And he discussed how they view the market and the way that they look at things. And he talked about how for all the different sets, they'll put together common rare play sets and sell them. And they'll usually keep some in back stock for then like later on down the road, they'll release them out again into the wild so that people can have a chance to get to them. And they're completely sold out of all of them, all sets. And I don't know about you, if you're a franchise player, I have all that. So it isn't me buying those. It isn't, and it definitely isn't people like me buying those. Those are coming from new players. That's actually from growth. So that's a big deal. And I don't know, man. Like, I'm really excited about the kind of like where the future's going. And not just because I have a incredibly, I wouldn't say incredibly large, I have a good sized investment in this game. It wasn't meant to be an investment. I just own a lot of things because I enjoy the game, and I'm a degenerate that likes to crack packs. So I cracked a lot of packs.
Yeah, me too.
Which leads to owning a lot of cards. So when I see Sink Belows are like $3 or $4 a piece, I'm like, cool. I have lots of them. Yeah,
man, like I have a bunch of them too. Maybe I should help some folks out.
Let's look here. Again, we're just going to do this shit live because it's a slow news week. Sink Below Red. Survey says, welcome to Wraith. Your cheapest are $2.50.
Wow.
The ones out of the History Pack 1 Bravo Blitz deck are like, well, that doesn't count. But it's actually to get to your first, I guess Fab Emporium is a rated seller, gold star seller. So they're $2.50 and they have a ton of them. But then they jump up to like $3 pretty quickly. And the ones that they're selling are at Fab Emporium for $2.50 are Spanish. They're History Pack 1 ones. So your first real listing for English WTR Sink Belows, not pinks, just sinks, is $3.20 a piece. If you want pinks, $7, which isn't bad. I would actually buy pinks at that point.
Yeah, I think that's actually kind of cheap.
It's like there's two out there for $7, and then they go to 10, 9, 10 for a while, and then they go to 12s. And then
the next time I go to a big event or something, I might actually just try to pick some up at that rate, because
if I didn't already own a set, I would just buy some now.
Yeah, I don't.
already have
I think I only own one. So
yeah, it makes sense.
And I'd have to check my binder. But I think I've only opened 3 packs ever. Right? It was the draft we did.
Yep.
So
I still have like there's a pink spinal that I have for you or something. I don't remember.
So I own a pink spinal, not from that draft, because when we were at Pro Tour Baltimore and somebody opened an alpha pack there, I was like, oh man, like pink spinal or whatever. And he was like, do you have one? And I said no. And he just handed it to me.
Yeah, that I've run into, he's a listener.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'm
just saying, like, I have that spinal, but I just didn't want you to think I was like holding out on you from.
No, I have another one.
Okay. Well, no, I remember because when we did our alpha draft, like I gave you the remembrance and I was like, that's the only thing that we opened to value. And I just didn't want you to think I was holding out on you or something. But
No. I remember. And I wouldn't actually care. So there's also care, though. That part.
I would care.
Like my give a shit level is very low when it comes to that. Time for listener questions. We only have a few. So first we're going to open this stupid thing because I love cracking packs. It doesn't look like it curled. So maybe that's a good sign. I don't know.
It's curled. But that's okay.
Then I'm fucked.
I need one anyway.
This is your way to get one. So it's kind of cool. They definitely do it to you.
Oh my god, are you like Netflixed right now?
What do you mean?
Like you're cracking the thing and I'm so excited for you and now your video feed is pixelating on my side.
Oh, that's
for all
awesome.
I know, I'm watching like Paul and Tyson throw a fight.
I don't know how I'm going to do this, but we're just going to start pulling up.
Oh. Sorry,
no, that's rainbow foil.
I was going to say it's a slideshow on my side. Like that. I went, and I had seen nothing yet.
Oh, okay. It's another rainbow foil, so Charmer can get his way and finally get one.
Yeah, now I just got to find the other ones. Or at least the new. The new's the one that like really hurts me inside that I missed out on. But
it's odd to me because like the IRAs are the more expensive one, and I was trying to figure that out, like why the IRAs are the more expensive one, because I thought that everybody at the Pro Tour got an IRA, and all the players, right? And then I found out that is not actually quite true. All of the players got an IRA. They just didn't get this IRA. They got the one that you normally get
right
from the 5th anniversary, from the promos here in the States. And so the only way to get this IRA is through a 5th anniversary pack or through playing the IRA events in Osaka. And then these things are vaulted, but the players in Osaka got did get like the Pro Tour players got one of the other anime heroes at random.
Right. They got one of the ones at random, and then so the IRA event as well. I remember all this because I was supposed to fucking play in it. The IRA event was the final day as well. So like the idea was essentially like unless you were like at the end of Worlds, then you were still going to have an opportunity to play in it. But that one also sold out like pretty quickly as well.
My IRA's a 9.5. But at any rate.
I just want to I want to give a shout out. Those new slabs are the first ones that actually make me want to get them. I have never until now ever cared about getting my stuff graded because it was always done so in a way that was like bulky and it made inconvenient. And it was interrupting seeing the card and just like all of that. And these are the first ones where I'm like, you know what? I would actually consider getting like all my assassin equipment.
Difference. Like
I would love to, but it's slideshow for me.
For fuck's sake. But like the difference in size, like, is absurd.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, these new player slabs from PCG, I've been critical about PCG as, their I mean, because they're just like any other grading company in the fact that they're going to do their, they're trying to grow their business, right?
Yeah.
And so it always felt like that they were, that maybe certain people were getting better grades than necessarily the cards themselves. But, that's something that can be, I mean, these are people doing the work, right? So that can also just be subconscious. And you can't really, this is not an exact science. But I did look over like the stuff because they do have subgrades on everything, and I looked over the cards that came back and where the subgrades were lower, and I was just like, okay, can I identify what they're seeing? I'm like, oh yeah, actually, I completely agree with that, and so I'm impressed by that, and also impressed just like the quality of product. Again, like these are fantastic. The thickness is great. The protection level is great. I mean, they don't feel flimsy at all. They're a nice little brick. The labels are nice and clear and easy to read, which is a big deal. And they have a good look. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I was trying to find online somebody had posted like the evolution of them side by side, and and I can't find it now, but that was what had sold me on it, because I was like, yeah, now these are actually like, I would be okay with, popping these out and playing with them. And like I said, it's the first time where I've thought, okay, maybe I'll take all my, cold foil assassin stuff and slab it up.
Yeah, if they have a booth in London, I'm definitely going to take like my Kodachis and my sabers, and probably my Kasai as well, and get them put together, because like the Kodachis should match the Ira,
Yeah,
and the sabers and the Kasai, like I'd probably actually just do the whole equipment suite, because it's all cold foil anyway. Might as well just all have it slabbed up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very happy with the quality of those. I'm definitely not disappointed, and impressed with how well they did, especially since they were doing these, on site too. Like that's pretty good. Listener questions. This is pretty light week. So first one's from Poxanas. He says, hey guys, Comics Corner question. Do love me some Comics Corner. New Psylocke dropped this week. Thoughts? So a few different things about Psylocke as it stands. If you're a comic book fan, go ahead and keep tuned in. If you're not a comic book fan, fast forward 90 seconds. This won't take too long. It might. Who knows? But they've separated Betsy Braddock and Quanon.
Yep.
Yeah. So Betsy Braddock is Captain Britain, and Quanon is Psylocke. They used to be kind of reversed, but because Betsy's mind was in Quanon's body. So now you just have Quanon as Psylocke. And so ninja, hand-trained ninja assassin that has hyper telekinesis, so the ability to create psionic blades and stab people with them to fuck up their minds.
I was going to say it fries their mind.
Correct. And so she's actually on the X-Men team that Cyclops runs right now, with Beast and Temper, Magic, Juggernaut, Quentin Quire, and Magneto. So it's a pretty interesting spread in that book. Now, the Quanon book is quite good, honestly. And it looks like they're going to sort of spin her out of the X-Men group, which might be, its own little interesting subplot and a way to connect things through. But the first book I really, really enjoyed, because it kind of gave a little bit more of her past, while also just having a ton of just full panels of awesome sequences. So I thought it was really good.
Do you want to know what I hope it kind of becomes? Because I've wanted a book like this for a while. There was a Mystique run many moons ago. It's probably about 20 years ago now, because I'm fucking old. But there was a Mystique book, and the entire premise was that she was working as a secret agent for Xavier, and she was doing the stuff that was too kind of sketchy for the X-Men to officially do, which might sound familiar.
X-Force before X-Force became what X-Force became. Yep.
So I was gonna say it might sound familiar, but much like the Psylocke stuff, that run was just like riddled with some of the coolest covers and panels and sequences. Like if you're somebody who plays Marvel Snap and you've ever seen the variant where it looks like Mystique has 6 arms, that actually like comes from that run.
Yeah,
because she became like a whirlwind of gunfire. It was really, at the time I really liked it because it was like almost the Marvel version of Alias, but with Mystique as your main character. And I just feel like I've wanted something like that again, and I kind of hope that's what this becomes in some ways.
There's also a new Mystique book right now.
Yeah, but it's not, my understanding is it's not the same as...
No,
yeah.
It's not. Moving on. Argent Gray asks, what are your thoughts on the possible rate of play issues in LL in a format that includes things like CYB Oldhim? I see reason to be aware but not concerned. Mainly because the chunks that you can take out of people in LL are much bigger, and the turns that can happen in LL are super fucked up. So you can really hurt somebody in LL. And
so there is that, but as somebody who also remembers pretty vividly what it was like to play when Oldhim first came out, especially when people did not have experience piloting him, I feel like that rate of play is only an issue for a couple of events, because the people who have an issue with the rate of play for those games kind of take themselves out of the equation.
Also true.
That's not to say that there still won't be potentially bad experiences had, but the reality is if somebody is playing something like CYB Oldhim and they're taking a long time and they're not finishing their matches, I used to describe them as the suicide bombers back when Oldhim first launched. I was like, hey, look, if you run into an Oldhim mirror, or even like back then I was still on Bravo, I was like, if I run into an Oldhim, like I just know like they're a suicide bomber, because what's going to happen is it's going to be a draw and we're both going to suffer. And they're going to do that for the first 2 rounds and then be out of contention, and then it won't matter anymore. And the reality is it's either going to be a very seasoned Oldhim player who understands rate of play, and they will be playing fast because they've got the reps in, or it'll be somebody who doesn't, and they will run into a couple of draws and take themselves out of contention. And it only takes a couple of tournaments of people getting themselves knocked out due to draws before they either adjust the rate of play or they change decks. So like, is it a potential problem? Sure, but it's usually a very short-term problem, because people who are committed to the deck will put in the reps to speed up the rate of play, and the people who are not committed will switch after a tournament or 2 of not doing well. It's just the way it is.
That is correct. I don't think there's a better way to put that. Moving on. Wow, why? Okay, Johnny Pastrami asks, as elitist bidet users, do you have a family cloth? Get the fuck out of here. No, we don't. There's no family cloth. You think I'm going to share a cloth with the people in my house? No, they can use the shower curtain just like I do.
I just thought it was bold to assume there was a cloth at all.
You know, that's probably true. It is bold to assume that there's a cloth at all. But it's like, why? If you have a bidet, you just get clean and then it's mostly just drying. So you just use a little bit of toilet paper to get dry and you're good.
Is that what you're supposed to do?
Yeah. Is that not what you do?
No, I would usually, when I finish, I walk from the bathroom that's in our bedroom into my bedroom, and then I shake like a wet dog in front of Sophie, just vigorously gyrating.
So this is why you have concerns about shaving your ass.
Yeah.
Because otherwise that water will get everywhere.
Exactly. You're understanding.
Now I'm getting a lot more of the puzzle all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Fascinating. For fuck's sake. It'll be 3 years straight next week. 3 fucking years.
I'm just laughing because every time I say something just absolutely ridiculous like that, I think of this, thing that I saw posted on the internet that made me chuckle. And it was just a one-liner that said, podcasting equipment should be more expensive. And ever since I saw that sentence, every time I do something ridiculous, I'm like, yeah, they have a point. I shouldn't be allowed to do this without paying more.
This should be way harder to do. Instead, they let anybody get a half-assed decent microphone, spend some money on a camera, and have a subscription to a podcasting service. That's really it.
Yep, that's it.
Last questions from El Dorte. Question: what TTRPG systems have you guys played? So tabletop RPGs. He gives examples of D&D, New D&D, and Pathfinder. Are you more the one-shot players or the long campaign guys? I've played a lot of them.
I was gonna say short answer, yes.
Yeah, pretty much. D&D, yes. What wound up becoming Pathfinder, yes. New D&D, as of now, yes. GURPS. I'm a big GURPS guy.
Ooh, yeah, GURPS. I
love
GURPS.
me some GURPS.
Did you ever play Roll Master?
No, which one's that? Is that the Convoy one?
So, man, I don't even remember who published it. So it was called Roll Master, and it was like a play on words because it was about rolling dice and having your rolls. But what I remember about it pretty vividly was that your results for spells, instead of like, oh, you just roll damage, right? Like, it's not like, oh, I fireball the room and I roll some damage and I'm done. You rolled percentiles, and then at the end of the player's handbook for that game, there was a percentile chart, and it was everything from like a puff of smoke comes out of your fingers to you incinerate them, there are no bones left. And it made for wild gameplay that stuck with me. Yeah, it was a little chaotic, stuck with me. So probably a reason that it didn't like catch on, just because even at like low levels, because of the chart, if you like crit hit, it was like a legit like wipe somebody off the face of the planet, crit hit sort of thing. But
But yeah, GURPS was great because it literally stands for a generic universal role-playing system.
Yeah.
So you could kind of do anything with it.
Meant to be played across any universe or time period. Like, there were rules for, like, if you wanted to have a caveman fight a space alien, they had it.
And it was so cool. Mainly because of, like, the point system that they use for abilities. Because you for everything, every positive, you got a negative. And sometimes the negatives were real fun. And because it's completely, like, modular, we had some really, really random shit that people had to have. But yeah, so if you haven't ever checked out GURPS, check out GURPS. I played a lot of Rifts. I really enjoyed Rifts. The original Star Wars role-playing game, I played that.
I played that one. I still got the player's handbook for D20 over there as well.
Yep. D20 Star Wars.
Yep, D20 Star Wars. I also have D20 Modern, because I used to do a bunch of D20 Modern stuff for a survival horror campaign I ran.
Oh, yeah, vampire and werewolf. Yep.
Just looking at my shelf alone, so I got the new D&D, I got a ton of 3.5 stuff. I've got a 4th edition player's handbook. I've played a bunch of advanced, so 2nd edition D&D, but I don't have any of the stuff from that anymore because that was from my teen years, sadly. I've got let's see, that's more D20 Modern stuff. I've played Shadowrun, but I don't have my stuff for that because I loaned it, but I've got Cyberpunk and Witcher stuff, I think.
Oh, they did a Witcher one? Is it D20 Witcher?
Oh.
No?
No, it's same people, so
White Wolf?
So like Cyberpunk Red, right?
Yep.
Which is Talsorian. And then Talsorian did Witcher as well.
Okay.
And then I also, because I kickstarted this, so I have like the cool version, but I've got the Tales of Xadia. So if you're a Dragon Prince fan like me, I've got that. Yeah, man, Shadowrun, I missed that. I've played, there was a Serenity game in the early 2000s.
Yep, I remember that one.
There was also the Marvel Universe RPG. So there's a new Marvel tabletop RPG, but there was the Marvel Universe one from like
The
late 90s.
Late 90s. Well, mid 90s.
Well, I remember, like, I played it late 90s. So, like,
Sure,
I remember it
okay.
as, like, late 90s, early 2000s, but I played that. I'm sure I'm forgetting.
I mean, there are
something.
tons.
There are a ton. That's why when you were like, did you? Yep. Just
Probably just yes.
It's probably easier to find a list of ones that I didn't do.
Warhammer Fantasy role playing did that. God, Jesus. If I'm trying to stretch all the way back, like there was one. God, it was kind of X-Files ish, but it wasn't X-Files. We were playing investigators.
Yeah, that rings a bell. I mean, that was kind of what my D20 Modern and it was like. It was pitched as survival horror, but the reality was, like, when I ran it, I wanted to create the like monster of the week thing, right? So it was kind of done like X-Files ish, and then I also, and because it was D20 Modern and that was the same time that 3.5, what I did was I got all of the horror campaign stuff for D&D, but then I would use those books to like cross-reference for the D20 Modern stuff, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I'm not finding the one that I was thinking of. I was, again, from that same kind of era where it was like mid to late 90s. But needless to say, there are a ton, and I've probably tried them at some point in time. It's very likely. Yeah, clean hour and 21 minutes. That's pretty good. So let's thank some patrons and get out of here, shall we?
Yes.
Okay. Starting with our associate producers, we have Andy, Sindra, Jacob, and the Salty Sea Cat. For our executive producers on up, we have Blaystorm, valued member of the Patreon. Dom, Lance Goodthrust, Matt Tutokes, Poxonus, Vintox 18. Some people want to watch the world burn. That would be me. Philip, Rich, and Sergeant Swanson. If you're interested in becoming a member of the Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. Link is in the show notes. We have 6 tiers of paid content, which just means you can get into FAP After Dark. The next one will be December 4th. We're actually giving you some lead time here. December 4th, we'll be back with FAP After Dark at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, or yeah, that's right. That's how math works. So yeah, if you join any of our paid tiers, you can join us for that. It's just a live show. We don't record it. We just kind of get together with our patrons and we have the same types of conversation we have here, just with less filter. If you can imagine that, usually joined by super producer Greg and Renaissance woman Bryn. Is that the best way to put it?
Sure.
She has like 100 different things she's good at.
I would say Bryn Esquire.
I don't think she's an attorney.
You don't have to be an attorney to be an Esquire.
Don't you?
No.
Really?
Really. In fact, Esquire, like, if you look up the history of it, it really started as like a term of made up nobility. It was like for the people who wanted to be nobles but didn't like qualify. So then they were just like, well, like you're an Esquire, but there was like no like qualifications for it. It's a whole thing.
Okay. Apparently I have researched. I have homework now. That's good. But sure. Banished Zone Bryn Esquire. That just sounds like porn now.
According to Wikipedia, it was a title of gentleman of the rank immediately below a knight.
So you weren't noble, so you couldn't be a knight unless you were raised to knighthood. So they just stapled this to you instead?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, that's... Huh.
The
All
word
right.
squire derives from scutum, Latin for shield.
Shield. Yes.
And squires were shield bearers.
Mm-hmm.
And so they became esquire.
Well, there you go. Little lesson for everybody today as we get out of here on this 155th episode of Flesh and Pod. Next week will be 156. I don't know anything that we're going to do yet because I don't have any ideas. That's about it, though. It might just be just your normal episode. Then from there, we'll reevaluate and determine if we want to keep this thing going. Because I'm tired.
I'm tired, boss.
Yeah, boss. I'm tired, boss.
Tired.
It's been 156 weeks. Well, 155. It will have been 156 that I've done this personally in a row. And yeah, it might be time for some much needed. I said this last year too. That's the fucked part, is I said this last year too. Yeah. And after 104, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take some time. And so I said to you when we were recording like episode 106 or whatever, I'm like, you know what? Maybe we'll just take next week off. And then you said, and I quote, or, and hear me out, we could just record an episode. And then
I wasn't wrong.
49 weeks later, we've just fucking done that.
I wasn't wrong.
No, you weren't wrong. You're just an asshole. And so here we are. I said there's no way we'd hit 156 in a row, and here we are. I'm going to say now there's no way we hit 200 in a row. There. I did it. I am drawing the line at 199. So...
That's fine. I'll just have guests on for 200.
You...
I just Psylocked you.
Yeah.
I scrambled your egg.
That doesn't sound like something you'd do.
I know, right?
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us on this fucking ride, but we'll be here next week with whatever the fuck we're going to do next week. So until then, bye.